For the Hacker Ryan Green from 1010XL and 92.5 FM, Week 6 here in Northeast Florida for the Friday Night Lights. We are presented by Farah and Farah. And Justin, it gets pretty real tonight as there is district play going on all over the area.
Yeah, we kind of segued into a little bit of that before with games a couple weeks ago, but very few and far in between in terms of how many teams have actually played district games. So it really picks up tonight, and we're going to see some really good games, some games with a lot of things on the line at stake, as well as games that are really already must-win situations for some teams in districts. So we really almost got de facto district championship games tonight. We've got make-or-break games for some teams like a Ponte Vedra or a Fleming Island. So really a lot on the line at Week 6. We've kind of officially turned the page into the midway point of the regular season for many teams in the area, and man, it really starts getting going tonight.
And if you take a look back at last week, we got a big night tonight, but if you take a look back last week, a couple of big-time games. St. Augustine Nice was a game that we focused a lot on last week. Also, Bowles and Oakleaf. Bowles dominating performance over Oakleaf, kind of a surprise. And how about St. Augustine knocking off Nice 1 week ago?
Yeah, I picked that game. I saw some other people did not pick. They picked Nice to win that. I may have been the only person to pick St. Augustine to win that game. I thought it would be like maybe a 2-point Jacket win. Turned out it was a 4-point St. Augustine win. Everything in that series has always been just so remarkably close. I think I threw a stat at you last week where like 5 of Nice's 7 wins in that series were all like 6 points or less.
Yeah.
And the year before it was a 35-34 win in overtime on a stop 2-point conversion. Before it was 23-20 before that. Just so many close games in that series. St. Augustine has usually been on the winning side of that, but man, Nice has played so many close games against St. Augustine. Really came down to a run there in the fourth quarter. St. Augustine made it, stopped Nice at the end, and it really didn't hurt either of those teams in terms of had they lost. St. Augustine, if they lost that game, doesn't hurt them. Still pretty solid where they stood in district play and region play. Nice really didn't hurt them, really helped them bolster them credential-wise in the FHSA points rankings and stuff. So it doesn't hurt you when you play good teams.
No.
Win or lose.
Yeah.
Win or lose.
And one of the interesting things coming out of that St. Augustine-Nice game, both teams have huge ball games tonight. St. Augustine against Lake City, Columbia. That's a game we're going to follow here in just a moment. Also, Nice traveling to Gainesville to play Buchholz. That'll be a tough test for the Panthers.
That's a huge test for both Nice and Buchholz, because Buchholz has made the last 4 state semifinals. Never played for a championship in that 4-year span. They run into some juggernauts, but they have played close in those state semifinal games. Just haven't been able to kind of turn that corner. But Buchholz is again a solid team. Really, the path in Region 1-6A has run through Gainesville and Buchholz for the last 4 years, maybe even 5 this year. They beat Oakleaf in the regional final last year. So I do think even though we've got some really good teams in that region, Mandarin, Nice, Oakleaf, it still runs through Gainesville Buchholz. It's a tough game for Nice tonight.
And quickly, one more game from last week. Bartram Trail, an 0-4 start. Very un-Bartram-like. They did get their first win last week. Will that propel them now into maybe turning their season around?
Yeah, you really hope so if you're Corey Johns. I mean, they've started that bad one other time in program history, and that's saying something. Bartram opened in 2000. They started that bad one other time when they actually started 0-5 and then caught fire and made a run to the state semifinals that season before losing to Armwood. So if you're Corey Johns, you hope something like that happens this year for Bartram. I don't think it will. I think Bartram is limited offensively this year, but it turns down the temperature a little bit on Corey Johns for finally getting that win. You've already lost to Creekside. You played a tough schedule, but getting that first win is really a saving grace for them as they head into the second part of the schedule. District play, Toad Creek tonight. So yeah, very big game for Bartram.
All right, let's start breaking down week number 6, and with that, your power rankings coming in to tonight. Again, a huge night of district play all over the area. Some teams will be over halfway home in the regular season when tonight comes to an end. How does your top 10 in the area look coming into tonight?
Yeah, had some changes in my Super 10 this week. I really had a hard time leaving Reigns in that number 1 spot. Our coaches did too in our coaches rankings. I think only 2 or 3 points separated St. Augustine from Reigns in that number 1 and 2 spot. But I left Reigns at number 1. Reigns has had a weird year. They've only played 3 games, headed into Riverside game of the week tonight. They lost the game at Miami Central in week 1 due to a cancellation. Had a week 5 bye naturally, so they played the fewest games of any team in the area. But I kept Reigns at number 1. St. Augustine at number 2 after that big win over Nice. They got Columbia tonight. We'll drop in on that game here in a little bit. Bowles at number 3 after a big win over Oakleaf. Columbia had the big jump this week at number 4 and all the way up from number 7. Nice at 5, Mandarin at 6. I didn't move either of those teams just because they lost to powerful teams. Oakleaf drops from 3 to 7. Bradford moves up from 9 to 8 after a big win over Gainesville Eastside. And then 9 and 10 I had Ed White actually dropping down a spot after a win last week. Just haven't played the schedule there. And then Beachside, they are off this week, but man, they're off to a good start now that they got Eddie Jordan back.
I had the same conversation on the radio, and let's go ahead and look into our first game of the night. Let's head out to St. Johns County, Wake City, Columbia, and St. Augustine. One of the games of the night in the area as we take a look down at St. Augustine High School, and we check out the Yellow Jackets and the Wake City Columbia Tigers. Jackets already up 7-0 on Wake City Columbia. The fact that St. Augustine has wins over Bowles and Nice, to me, Justin, that almost cancels everything else out. I know it's probably 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other with them and Reigns, but my goodness, man, is there a team in the area with 2 better wins? And is there a team in the state with 2 better wins right now than St. Augustine, having beat Nice and Bowles already?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's why I just had such a difficult time leaving St. Augustine in that number 2 spot. Just because, I mean, they played such a good schedule so far. And again, tonight, if they beat Columbia, which they're up 7-0 as we drop in and look into this game of the week, Tigers trying to get something going against a younger St. Augustine defense, but you really got to contend with that St. Augustine offense. But I don't think there's been even a comparison in terms of the strength of schedule, in terms of marquee wins, and St. Augustine has them.
You know, if you look at things tonight, let's go ahead and look at the scoreboard. What's interesting about tonight's action, Justin, we've been on the air for 10 minutes. There's a lot of games that are nearing halftime. There were a ton of 6:30 starts. Again, Duval County schools begin at 6:30. So if you look at the scoreboard early, again, a lot of these games are district games. Mandarin is up early on First Coast, 7-0. Let's stop right there. How about that district? You got Mandarin, you got First Coast, both teams coming in at 3-1. Mandarin coming off a 50-point loss to IMG. People were interested how they would respond. So far, they've responded pretty well tonight.
Yeah, big catch there for Columbia moving down the field. But yeah, you're right. Mandarin, you lose by 50 to IMG Academy, and you wonder, man, what is this doing? It doesn't do anything to Mandarin. You lose that game, who cares? It's a game you knew you were going to lose. You knew you were going to get stomped and filleted in that game. You did. You lost by 42 the year before to them at IMG. You weren't even going to hang in that game. Let's be honest. I mean, IMG is just a different beast, different. If you play and stave off a running clock, that's good. That's a win right there because IMG is just good. Mandarin is one-dimensional. You got Bryson Wright. You got a decent running game, but you're one-dimensional against a team like that. So you weren't going to win that game. First Coast, I still think Mandarin is in the picture to win that district. And First Coast has been riding a little bit of a heat wave under Jarvis Parker. First 2-game winning streak for him.
One of the biggest surprises in the area is probably First Coast.
Yeah, been a nice little ride for First Coast to start. But now that you start getting into district play and you start kind of getting those more difficult teams is now when you really start, you're not going to learn much from playing a Kip Bolt City. No disrespect to Kip, but just a young team right there. Why don't we hop over to our Varsity 4 game of the week now. Reigns at the backyard. TJ Cole lifts one to the end zone and not going to get in there. And no touchdown there for Reigns, but they are up 14-0 in our game of the week. Looks like Columbia just got on the scoreboard as well. So that game appears to be almost tied pending this PAT down there in St. Augustine, Foots Brumley Stadium. PAT coming up, and it looks like we are going to be tied 7-7 in the de facto district championship game between Columbia and St. Augustine. So PAT is good, and we got a 7-7 game down there in St. Augustine. 6:07 through the first quarter, 6:07. Why don't we bounce back to our Varsity 4 game of the week? TJ Cole lining reins up. They got a chance to stick one in the end zone here.
Oh, they do.
And they
Wide
do.
open.
Beautiful pass from TJ Cole and hushing them up there at the backyard.
Telling the backyard folks to quiet down a little bit. And look, and we've had this conversation about Reigns the entire year, and we'll continue to have it the entire year. They are very, very good. They just have not played great competition.
They have not. They played a tremendously weak schedule. That was Ethan Sherman on that touchdown grab. I believe that's his 4th or 5th touchdown catch of the season. Good work by our photog Walter to track that one in. So,
I'm assuming it's probably taunting, would be my guess based on what just happened there.
Probably a tunnel over Riverside here at the backyard. In our Varsity 4 game of the week. And, of course, Bishop Kenny, 36-0. Oak Leaf, 38-6. You've done something right if you're Matt Toblin on that defense. It seems like the problems that we saw at St. Augustine game have been rectified. Again,
Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters, brings you this scoreboard update. It's a 6:30 games all over Duval County. 7 o'clock games well underway. You mentioned Bowles. They begin district play tonight, Justin, against Baldwin. You also have Jackson and Wolfson in that district. How can I say this tactfully? There is no reason Bowles should be in a district with those 3 teams.
Yeah, you are right about that. You're totally right. You know, we talked about this earlier on when we mentioned Sunshine State Athletic Association teams. You've got to, if your teams in the Gateway Conference, Paxton, Stanton have done this remarkably well, and I commend them for doing it. If you're Wolfson, get into the Sunshine State Conference. If you're Sandalwood, think about going there. If you're West Side, think about going there. There's no reason you need to be playing in a district with a Bowles.
As a Wolfson alum, I agree with you 150%.
Yes, it makes no sense. And, hey, kudos to Wolfson for last week. I picked them to lose to Bishop Snyder. They won 49-0, and they filled my inbox up. They hit me up on Instagram afterwards and let me know that I was way, way off. The kid broke his arm and sent a picture in from the hospital and said, News4Jax, we still up. He's in the hospital. Ragging on me for my pick in that game. So
Justin Barney's motivation for schools around here is just legendary.
It was perfect. But, yeah, it makes no sense for Wolfson, for Stanton, for Westside, any of those teams to be playing in a district. I mean, but Baldwin, Wolfson, Jackson, they can't hang with, they can't even hang with a Bowles. There's no reason they should be in a district like
Having
that.
said that, I agree with you. Bowles and Baldwin are playing right now. We'll get a score update on that game in a moment. This will be Bowles' toughest test of that district.
Yes.
Baldwin is a decent team. In fact, Baldwin lost a heartbreaker last week to Baker County, 51-48. But they are 4-1 on the year. I expect Bowles to win relatively easily in the second half. But I think Baldwin will hang with them at least for a little bit.
I think Baldwin probably a quarter or so will hang. Bowles is just too good. And for Baldwin, what Don Velvet's done out there, remarkable job. You've got to win those games. Baldwin's a good program, and you look back, I mean, they were undefeated regular season as recently as 2020. Had another one before that. So they're not a slouch program, but you are not competing on level footing if you're a Baldwin when you're talking about playing a Bowles team. And so few schools would be able to kind of hang with a Bowles school, but especially not a Baldwin, a Wolfson, a Jackson. It's just, you need to consider getting into the Sunshine State Athletic Association and bang with teams that are similar. West Nassau's done it, Fernandina Beach has done it, Paxton has done it, Stanton has done it, and they've all found success. And that's what you want to do. When I was out at West Nassau a few weeks ago, a guy was asking me, hey, what do you think of SSAA? And I said, it's great for West Nassau. And we talked about West Nassau being a district with Bowles and Reigns before. West Nassau could have an unbelievable team. They could be starting out 6-0, 7-0, and you knew under the old setup you would never go to the playoffs because district champ, district runner-up got in. Bowles, Reigns, always getting in. You were never getting in there.
So it was a tough deal.
Yeah, take the other way. Take the call it the path of least resistance, but it's SSAA is an organization you can compete in. It makes no sense for Fernandina West Nassau to go 2-8 or 3-7 just say you've been in district. I mean, play in meaningful games against schools that you're comparable with and have your success that way.
Mandarin has taken a 14-0 lead on First Coast. The Jackson Tigers 16-0 over Wolfson right now. We mentioned Rains 21-0 as we're looking here at Riverside and Rains in the backyard. Riverside's got the ball, a little wide receiver screen there, trying to get something going as, again, Rains up early 21-0. You know, Justin, for our audience, I would believe most probably know this, but for the ones that don't, or just to rehash, we talk about districts. Why are district games so important? Well, because they're going to determine who goes to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's you know, it's different in terms of different states and stuff, and there's been a lot of change in Florida over the years in terms of, we got a score in that St. Augustine game as well.
I believe we do.
So it looks like Jackets going in front on Columbia in the de facto district championship game down there in St. Augustine. But to your point, I mean, this district championship game we're watching right now, basically, St. Augustine and Columbia, okay? So you have several teams in this district, but the only way to punch your ticket into the playoffs in classifications 1A through 7A is you are assigned a district. So St. Augustine and Columbia are in a district with some other teams. You win those district games, you're on the playoffs. You punch your ticket automatically to the playoffs, qualify. In the past, up until the last 5 or 6 years, the district champ and the district runner-up went to the district. Well, it's changed now where only the district champ goes in. The other teams in the region, there are 8 teams in each region in the state classifications. There are 4 regions in each class, so 1A through 7A. You got 32 teams. So the first 4 in the regions are the district champs. So the district winners from those 4 districts in that region go to the state playoffs. The next 4 slots are determined by points, the metrics that FHA uses. So you'll have 4 district winners. St. Augustine, if they win the game, will go in as a district champion. Columbia, let's say they lose this game, if that score holds, they will have to take a path of points into the playoffs. So it's happened before. They've done it again. They've done it many years in a row. So that's why districts are important. You punch your ticket to the playoffs that way. It's not like it was in the past where the runner-up got in. No district shootouts anymore, like there are 3 teams tied. So you know you're going to the playoffs if you're St. Augustine. You don't have to sit there and watch the points or like a basketball bracket. You know, you're not trying to, see there on Sunday morning if you make the tournament or not. So you know you're getting into the playoffs if you're St. Augustine and you win this game.
As an example, the state released their rankings earlier this week.
Yes.
Now, these things will change drastically over the next, month or so. But as an example, in Region 1 7A, right now the only team that would be in from our area is Atlantic Coast as an 8 seed.
Yeah.
Will Atlantic Coast get in? Well, probably. I mean, who knows? They're going to have to play Creekside and Sandalwood to figure that out. But based on points, they would be the only team to get in. Class 6A Region 1 is really interesting because Oakleaf is currently the 5 right now, Mandarin is currently the 3, and Nice is currently the 2. Again, a lot will change there, but you would have Mandarin, Nice, and Oakleaf all in right now in that same region.
And that's what it was last year. And one of those 3 teams, because they're all in the same district, will actually, I'm sorry, Nice is not in that district, I don't believe. So you have Mandarin and Oakleaf, which are in that same district. Oakleaf's in there with Fletcher. Come out of there. Nice got in there last year. They're in there with Buchholz. Nice was the number 1 seed. So you get your seeds 1 through 8. Oakleaf made it last year. Buchholz made it last year. Nice made it last year. Mandarin made it last year. So that's 4 of your teams right there in that region alone. They get reseeded and play each other in the first round of the playoffs, second round of the playoffs, third round of the playoffs. So it's important to win your district and have a tough schedule because you're seeing these seeds. Well, let's say you don't get a top 4 seed. Okay, let's say you're lower down the totem pole. You're going to have to possibly travel to a district champ. So if you're seeded 5, 6, 7, or 8, well, you're not going to have a home playoff game unless you happen to win your district and be seeded lower. So in a sense, you could win your district and not host a playoff game, just how the formula works, the metrics work. So it's a little confusing, especially the first year this came about. And like, how is a number 8 seed hosting a 1 seed? Well, the 8 seed was the district champ, the 1 seed was not, and that's just how it goes. But yeah, it's important to win your district, play a tough schedule, because you can see teams that have great records way down in those standings because you played a kind of a booty schedule, and that's what happens. And it's interesting watching how the playoff system has developed and thinned out and beefed up over the years. You remember when this first started, I think it was Wolfson, right, or Jackson that got in the playoffs or tied to get into the playoffs and lost a coin flip.
Yes.
To a winless team, a team that was like, or maybe 1-9 or 0-10. I can't remember. I think it was a winless team. Looks like this Reigns. They get in another.
Yeah, it looks like we're about to have a running clock here. It's about to be 28-0 Reigns as they are just destroying Riverside.
Yeah.
This is a Riverside team that put 41 on St. Augustine not that many weeks ago.
Yeah, so Reigns is just different this year. Let's just say that. Reigns is on a tear this season. It's kind of the redemption season in a sense to prove that the Miami Northwestern loss last year was a fluke, that it won't happen again. Reigns has just been absolutely waxing teams this year.
And the extra point is good. 28-0 Reigns leads Riverside there in the backyard. I believe they're still in the second quarter, so Riverside certainly has their work cut out to them. Let's take a quick look over at St. Johns County. Again, the game of the night, Lake City, Columbia, and St. Augustine. We have the Yellow Jackets of St. Augustine up 14-7 right now in Lake City, Columbia. Look at the crowd out there in St. Augustine, too. That is a huge game. Columbia driving. We'll keep you updated on this one as well. And these rankings, Justin, are fun to talk about. They will obviously change. But a prime example of how good things could be is in 5A Region 1. If the playoffs started tonight, you'd have Ponte Vedra hosting Middleburg. You'd have Beachside and Fleming Island. 4 local teams would make the playoffs in Class 5A.
Yeah, that's a big, region there for our teams. Kind of like Region 16A with Nice and Oakleaf, and that 5A is a block of good teams in there. And I think you're going to see a Beachside, Ponte Vedra, Fleming Island. I think you're going to see all those teams make the playoffs. I think all of those teams are really good. Who comes out of there? Can they get past the region into a state semifinal? That's a different story. That's a tougher sell. But I think Ponte Vedra is really good. I think Beachside is really good. Eddie Jordan, 535 passing yards last week against Bishop Kenny. You've got some really good teams in that Region 1 5A, and a lot of them, when you're talking about half the field in that Region 1 5A, could essentially make the playoffs.
Another score update. Bishop Kenny 21-0 right now over Parker. 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. So Bishop Kenny absolutely rolling. We talk about St. Augustine, the game we're watching right now. They would be currently the 1 seed in their region in the playoffs. They would play Riverside right now, according to these latest rankings. Ed White's kind of an example. Ed White hasn't had the toughest schedule. They're undefeated, yet they would be seeded 5th in this region, playing Booker T. Washington.
Yeah, and again, that's what happens when you don't play a good schedule. I've spoken on it before, and people get mad. Well, we can only schedule who? No, you can make a good schedule, and if you play in a weak district or you play, that's why I'm not a proponent of Duval County forcing you to schedule a certain number of gateway games to hit a quota. I think it's a terrible look. I think it's antiquated. Maybe that changes in the future, but it would be great because White doesn't need to be playing West Side. Yeah, I know that's a rivalry, but come on. You gain nothing from those games. It's such an antiquated way of looking. And you're 17 teams in the Gateway Conference. You shouldn't be. The West Side should be in there playing with the Paxtons and the Stantons. You should not be playing Ed White. Yes, rivalry game. Inglewood shouldn't be. Come on. When you're playing teams like that, and hey, we're 4-0, we should be ranked higher. No, you shouldn't. You played a bad schedule. You're playing cupcakes. You need to be playing teams that are better. Merritt Island tonight against Ed White is really good. And Ed White and the Commanders' defense, they will be playing more of a tougher schedule on the back end, but I don't think you can kind of, bellyache or anything about your rankings or anything. Why are we not seated high? Well, you play a better schedule and you're going to be seated high.
Right.
You cannot say, hey, we're beating Inglewood. Hey, we're beating West Side. Come on. You can't. You don't need to be playing those teams in the first place.
St. Augustine 14-7 over Lake City, Columbia. Riverside has the ball now against Reigns. Again, Riverside down 28-0, looking to make something happen there at the backyard. As we take a look over there, I guess they're in a timeout right now. Riverside with the ball, again, trying to do something to cut into this Reigns lead. Reigns would be the 1 seed in the playoffs right now in Region 3, or Class 3A Region 1. Again, a lot of teams would make the playoffs. Reigns would play Menendez if the playoffs started tonight. You got Bishop Kenny and Baker County in that region, as is Yulee. Let's take Yulee, Bishop Kenny, Baker, or Menendez. Who would give Reigns the biggest problem?
Man. Well, Yulee and Reigns play later on the season for what will be a district championship. I'm going to probably say Yulee right now. They do have some size and strength on that, especially on that defensive line. Turtle Ricks is a big boy, very strong player. So I'm going to say Yulee would probably give Reigns more of a challenge. But when you look at those rankings, Reigns is definitely going to be a 1 seed in that region. You want to be. I can't remember what Range's overall seed is in the entire in the class rank. Okay, they're number 3 in Class 3A, so that's important to watch more than the region rank, because the region rank you're going to be in there with Bishop Kenny or Yulee Baker. I mean, you're gonna win that region with your eyes closed, sleeping backwards, taking 2 Ambien. You're gonna roll through that region, running clock the whole way. You are going to need to worry about the state semifinals. When you get to that state semifinal round, you don't want to be a number 4 seed, because number 4 seed is going to run into a Miami team in that first round and is going to possibly not even make the state championship game. Last year they played, I think it was Sarasota Booker in the state semifinals and won that game in a tough game. But you do not want to get that 4 seed. You would be great if you get the 1 seed, but you don't want that 4 seed. So it's important for Reigns to, stay in that 3 seed, go to the number 2 seed, but you do not want to be a 4 seed, because you're going to run into a Miami Central or a Miami Northwestern in that that state semifinal game. That's what you want to avoid. You want to play one of those teams in the championship game if you can have any kind of control over it or not.
Again, Riverside and Rains are the Channel 4 game of the week. 28-0 Rains right now as we go back to St. Johns County. Looks like we're in a little bit of a timeout as well. Is Lake City Columbia driving the football? I believe they are. It's a 14-7 lead for St. Augustine, as Lake City Columbia, I believe, does have the ball, maybe the end of the quarter here, trying to tie it up. Lake City Columbia, you have 14-7 St. Augustine as they begin the second quarter of play. We'll get into Brian Allen, the head coach of Lake City Columbia. He just won his 100th game there at Lake City Columbia last week. Before we get there, Metro Suburban. It was, a 2-year run? A couple of years, right? Where, and for people that aren't familiar, Duval County had to play playoffs against Miami, Tampa, Orlando, because they were the Metro, the 6 or 7 biggest counties in the state. Whereas then all the other 50-plus suburban counties were thrown into the playoffs. That means St. John's didn't have to play the big city schools. Did you like that, and why do you think it changed back?
The state didn't want it, for one. The Miamis of the world didn't want that. They wanted a one-size-fits-all playoff system. And good or bad, I liked Suburban Metro because it gave teams like the St. Augustines, like the Bradfords, a crack at a state championship game, because you are not going to compete against teams like Venice. You're not going to compete against teams like a Plantation American Heritage. It's just not going to happen. Coco's a little down this year, but Bradford and Cocoa playing in a state championship game is a little bit more conducive. You feel like you got a chance there. But, playing against a heavyweight, a Chaminade, local teams are still, for the most part, somewhat quasi-local in this transfer portal world. We don't have, Range is loaded. Mandarin is a really good team. You got transfers aplenty at both of those schools. But you're not talking Range and Mandarin on the level of a Miami Northwestern, a Miami Central, of Venice. I mean, those teams, kids are transferring in from multiple surrounding counties to play. You've got, it's just so different down there. So I think Metro Suburban was a choice of a lot of those suburban coaches, because it felt like they were on level footing for once. You're playing, St. Augustine played Mainland for a state championship a couple years ago, lost on a heartbreaking walk-off field goal.
That was a great game.
Great game.
Yeah.
But you felt like you had a chance in those games. Brian Braddock, for as good of a coach he is and as good of a program they have, if they get to the state championship game and have to play a Plantation American Heritage, they're not going to win. And
I agree with what you're saying. The biggest complaint, though, I heard from coaches, I'm sure you heard it too, the ones that were against it, is you didn't know who the state champion was.
Yeah.
If you had a Metro champion and a suburban champion. And my thought on that was, why wouldn't maybe you play the Metro champion versus the suburban champion, but logistically they just never could able to get there?
It would have been great. It would have crowned a true champion. But the flip side of that was, well, what are we then? If we win a suburban championship, we're going to get crushed by the Metro team. Does that devalue what we just did? Yeah. Sitting in those FHA board meetings where people were talking about it and stuff, it's you heard both sides, and I liked it in the sense that it gave the teams on those fringes, the chance to actually compete. When I'm talking like Sunshine State Athletic Association, you give those teams a chance to compete. And not everybody should get a trophy. This isn't Little League ball where everybody who laces them up on Friday night deserves to win a chance. Come on, let's get out of that trophy mentality for everybody. But it gives schools like the St. Augustine's, like the Mainlands, the chance to beat a really good program. There's nothing equitable about Miami-Dade, Broward, all that infrastructure down there. There's so many teams and students. You're not drawing from the same kind of well of students. You're allowed to create these super teams, and it just so happens that these super teams are in these counties that are huge metro counties. And if Trinity Christian, you get down and you play a Chaminade, or you're going to get waxed. You're going to get running clocked. As good as Lakeland has been, as good as some of these other teams who've got there, Buchholz, you get down there and you get absolutely taken apart by an Aquinas. You're not going to be able to beat those teams.
Right.
And it's the same thing year after year after year. And the state, what they're doing to somewhat address that is going to an open championship supposedly next year, where it takes a certain number of schools, the top 10, 12, 16 rated in the state, puts them in their own separate classification to weed out some of these heavyweight all-star teams that are dominating year after year after year. And this kind of goes into a bigger topic in terms of politicians, and looks like St. Augustine touchdown right there. Oh,
wow. Yes, it is.
And the Jackets open up a 2-score lead on Columbia. So it looks like St. Augustine is looking pretty good down here against Columbia. Man, if St. Augustine wins this game in a rout, it's going to be tough to keep them at number 2. They are putting together a darn good body of work, Hacker.
They just absolutely are. Already wins over Nice, already wins over Bowles. If they take care of Lake City, Columbia tonight, and they're on their way to doing so, let's see if this extra point is good. It'll be a 21-7 lead for St. Augustine, and it is good. It's a 21-7. St. Augustine leads Lake City, Columbia. 8:45 to go in the second quarter. Quickly, a couple of scores that have rolled in, because I got a thought on Lake City, Columbia, and some of the things you were just talking about. Gainesville Buchholz 7-0 over Nice. Justin, we mentioned that's going to be a tough game for Nice. Toccoy and Bartram all tied 7-7 in the second quarter. You also look, Menendez 21-0 over Westside. Tallahassee Godby has traveled to Baker County tonight. Godby leads that game 3-0. University Christian an early 14-0 lead over Santa Fe, and very little defense being played in Jackson and Wolfson. I got Jackson 22-15 over Wolfson in the second quarter.
Defensive struggle in that game, huh? Right there, defensive struggle. Now, I thought Jackson would win that game handily, but again, Wolfson, man, if they prove me wrong again this week, I'm going to have to go to Powers Avenue and talk to Miss Cindy Talley and beg for forgiveness for picking against them 2 weeks in a row. But back to the playoff thing, just briefly, the open division, I think, would be a great concept and kind of alleviate some of those concerns. Politicians control the FHSA now, so it's the State Department, Florida Department of Education really controls the state, how the FHSA operates. So they are very, very much in terms of they want schools and kids to have freedom of choice and go, and they feel like a lot of the recruiting issues or the private-public issues that has been a big split the public-private playoffs have really been addressed by open enrollment and kids being able to go here and there. But that is not the case. It's allowed some of these schools, these superpowers, to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So maybe if that open division comes and you get some of those heavyweight teams and Miami Northwesterns, those guys, out of the regular classification playoffs and put them in a like pool come postseason time, then maybe the playoffs will resemble a little bit more of that suburban metro system that we saw.
I enjoyed the suburban metro. I understood the complaints about it because you didn't know who the true state champion was. But again, the metro was all the big cities. It was very few counties. It was only like 6 or 7 counties involved there. The other 50-plus counties were in suburban. But I enjoyed it. I did understand the complaints about it. Quickly, Mandarin has added a touchdown, 21-0. They lead First Coast. Fletcher is on the board with a field goal. They now trail Oakley 7-3. And that brings us to this. You and I were talking earlier this week. A cool story. We're watching St. Augustine and Lake City, Columbia. Lake City, Columbia is coached by their alma mater and a former Florida State Seminole in Brian Allen. Of course, Seatric Faison, C4, the coach at his alma mater, Fletcher. He was obviously a great tailback at Florida. If you go to Orange Park High School, former Miami Hurricane defensive back Marcus Wimberly is the coach there. You can go a little bit out of the area and find some more examples of that. But, Justin, I think it's outstanding that we have a former Gator, a former Cane, and a former Seminole that are all head coaches here in Northeast Florida.
I know. It's so cool. You know, Demetric Jackson out at Fort White, he was on a Gators national championship team. And it's really cool to see how many guys have kind of almost come back in a sense to their alma mater, in a sense, for Seatric Faison. Marcus Wimberly, of course, is from out of the area, but Seatric Faison comes back to Fletcher and coaches at his alma mater, a place where he was the all-time leading rusher in Jacksonville history until Derrick Henry came along. So that's really cool. And Demetric Jackson comes back. Brian Allen at Columbia comes to his alma mater, where he really did some awesome things as a player. Of course, he went to Florida State, was drafted by the Rams, and he's got a great story. I love talking to Brian Allen. But it's cool to see because it shows how much high school really impacted those guys' lives. And you want to come back and almost pay it forward and give things to the younger kids.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. As we're looking at Lake City, Columbia right now, you mentioned Brian Allen. He just won his 100th game at Lake City, Columbia, I believe last week. Interesting situation there a couple of years ago. He left, basically had enough of high school football, left for, a year, and then he got the itch to come back, and he was rehired at Lake City, Columbia. You don't see that very often.
No, it's cool that, I think he just needed a breather. He got into the private sector and kind of disengaged. There were some crazy hours he was working in that job he was in, and I think he just missed it. I think, when Demetric Jackson, he was there. Demetric Jackson took over for Brian Allen. Demetric, of course, was at Fort White and went over to Columbia and there for 2 years, and they had a really good run. I think they made the state semifinals under Demetric, and then Demetric went back to Fort White. So it was kind of it just kind of fit Brian Allen. Brian got out. COVID had happened, and he had lost a guy in his staff to COVID, and I think he just kind of needed that break. And he said when he came back, I'm a Tiger for life. I'm a Tiger as long as they'll have me. So he just is a guy that fits down there. And he's coached some darn good players. Laramie Tunzel, for one, Shaheem Brown. I mean, he has got some good guys. And people ask, what's the best place to watch a game on Friday night? And I remember going to a Columbia game back when I was at the paper, and it was just true Friday night lights. And it's not like that as much now, but I still think Columbia is one of the best places in our area to watch a game.
Tiger Town is what they call it.
I love it.
Yeah, Lake City, Columbia, it's a big, big deal over there, no doubt about it. Also a big deal at Bradford County. They have a 9-0 lead tonight, Justin, over Keystone Heights. I was interested to see how Bradford would respond to the loss to Mandarin a couple of weeks ago. They responded beautifully last week. They're off to a good start against Keystone tonight.
Yeah, and Bradford is all defense, and I picked them to win big in that game, and Bradford worries me offense-wise. The deeper they get into the postseason, they could potentially see a bowls in the state semifinals. They worry me in terms of their offense because they don't have a lot of it. But defense, man, they have been just lights out when Jamie Rogers got to Bradford and got to start. And, man, they have been unbelievable. One of the best defenses in the state of Florida. And, man, Bradford football is something. Jamie Rogers knows how to coach, and he knows how to coach defense.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about that. All right, Bishop Kenny's up 35-0 on Parker in the first quarter. This is a get-right game for Bishop Kenny. They've had a couple of heartbreaks.
Yep.
The Bulls wasn't so much a heartbreak. I think it was a reality check.
Yep.
Last week was a heartbreak against Beachside.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Parker was next on their schedule, and Parker's feeling the wrath of that right now.
And that's kind of how Bowles was. The wrath after that St. Augustine loss was taken out on Bishop Kenny to the tune of 36-0. And you knew this one for Bishop Kenny would feel like they were the get right game, the get back on track game after losing really two tough games in a row to Beachside and to Bold.
Yeah, and there's no doubt. Creekside also 28-12. I have them over Sandalwood. You and I have talked about Creekside for the last couple of weeks. 1-4. It's not the start we wanted for Creekside. But at the end of the day, if you beat Sandalwood and you beat Atlantic Coast, you're going to be a district champion. You're going to be in the playoffs. So they're taking care of business right now against Sandalwood.
Yeah, and that's, Sean McIntyre, that's well, I went out to him and talked to him and went out to practice before the Bartram game and asked him, I said, do you try to really reinforce to your guys that you haven't even started your season yet? Yeah, right. You're 0-3, Bartram's on deck, and you haven't really played well historically against Bartram. Have you kind of reinforced to the guys that, hey, stop watching the wins and losses because our season hasn't even started. We got Atlantic Coast and Sandalwood to worry about. And when we beat those guys, we're in the playoff. We're district champion for the second year in a row. And how do you kind of do that? Said, yeah, it's, you control your destiny. And that started with a Bartram win. They lost last week. But they're halfway to a district championship if they hold on tonight.
I hate 3-team districts.
Me too.
I don't know what can be done about them, if anything, but I absolutely... There's been some instances where there have been 2-team districts, which is a complete joke.
Yes.
I have never been a fan of 3-team districts.
Absolutely terrible. I think it's one of the worst things in football, especially back, you did have 2-team districts. And I haven't looked closely enough around the state. I know they don't exist here anymore. But I knew before there was Maynard and Sandalwood in a 2-team district. So all you had to do was win one game and you're in the playoffs, no matter if you go 1-9. There were other teams that, again, there was 0-10 team that beat Jackson on a coin flip to get into the playoffs. 0-10 team to get into the playoffs. So the 2 and 3 team districts are terrible. And I know it's geographic and how many teams are in that region can be kind of put together, student bodies line up. So yeah, it's bad. But really, I mean, Atlantic Coast, Sandalwood, Creekside, you win 2 games there and you're in the playoffs, no matter if you're 2-8.
And briefly talk about that. How do teams get put into the same districts? How does that selection process work?
The FHSA looks at all the numbers of schools in the region, in the area. Everything is student population determined. So, Creekside, Atlantic Coast, Sandalwood just happen to be some of the same size-wise. 3 of the biggest schools in the region, and that's just how it fits. I remember years ago that there were a bunch of Jacksonville teams paired with Tallahassee teams in the same district.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, your 3-hour trip or district game. Come on, But anyway, geography. Student population, that's just kind of how it's determined, and it's more and more difficult now as teams go independent, go to the SSAA and play in there, because the FHA, you've got a pile of teams to kind of farm out and put different places, and as those piles start getting smaller and smaller, you've got to redecide how you want to do it. I mean, is a student population of that's the thing about going there. Like, there used to be 8 classifications. I mean, 8 classifications, and then the rural class, so 9. You have so many classes. I mean, back in the day, I remember there was like 3 classifications, and you had all your teams doing that. And now you go up to 9. So I mean, you're diluting these classes by the more classifications you put in. So I mean, some of these districts had no choice but to have 2-team districts because nobody else in that area fell into the criteria. So that's what you were left with. But they've thankfully gotten away from a lot of those, but there still are some that remain.
One game we haven't talked about tonight, Ponte Vedra, Fleming Island. That's a big game, particularly for Ponte Vedra.
Yep.
I believe they're already 0-1 in district play. They can't afford a second district loss. I have them up early, 7-0 on Fleming. Is it safe to say that we're in must-win territory for Ponte Vedra tonight? If they go 0-2, I mean, they're in trouble, right?
They're in trouble, but they're still pretty decent in terms of, again, first playoff rankings points. I mean, there's a lot of season left to go. But if you're Ponte Vedra, suddenly you're 3-3 if you lose this game, and you're 0-2 in district, so you're not going to win a district championship. You're going to have to get in via points, which they probably will because they played a tough schedule. But you don't want to have to kind of pin your hat and say, well, we may make the playoffs. We may get in there. I mean, you want to, as coaches, anybody wants to control their own destiny. You don't want to leave anything, like in boxing, you don't want to leave it up to the judges. You want to knock your guy out. You want to get a stoppage. In football, it's the same thing. You want to control your own destiny, write your own check, and not have to lean on anything else. And Ponte Vedra, with a loss to Fleming Island tonight, would certainly fall into that category of having to kind of scoreboard watch each week.
Oakleaf has added a touchdown. They now lead Fletcher 14-3. It's a nice response from Oakleaf after losing the fashion they did last week to Bowles. Menendez 21-0 over Westside as well. Providence up 21-0 on Cornerstone. And Bartram Trail, Justin. Now, we talked about their win last week. Could that propel Bartram? It's early, but they've taken a 14-7 lead over Tucoy Creek.
And that's big for Bartram. It would be a first winning streak of the season for them, but it would also mean redemption after last year. Bartram was probably the worst team in St. Johns County last year in terms of, that's weird to say because Bartram has been such a stalwart in the area in St. Johns County for a long time. But you got crushed by Nice, you got slaughtered by Tucoy Creek, you got beat by St. Augustine. I mean, you were kind of low down the totem pole, and that's crazy to think. You missed the playoffs. So yeah, it's big for Bartram Trail not only to win a district game, but to get back and say, hey, remember us? We're Bartram Trail. We're still in this mix, and you gotta beat the little brother back down a little bit.
We're seeing Columbia try to make something happen again, 21-7. They trail St. Augustine down there in St. Johns County. At this point of the night, we also look for maybe some surprises that are brewing. It's very early, but Ribault an 8-7 lead over Yulee in the second quarter.
Yeah, Ribault, they played extremely well last week against Riverside. Really should have won that game. I was very surprised that Riverside was able to come back and win that game. And Riverside lost some kids after the first week of the season. I think they've gotten some more back. And Mike Hunter has done a good job of kind of making his kids believe and feel that they can win. He had a tough road in front of him to help restore that Ribault program. And also, you go into a Ribault situation where they've torn your school down. They're having to rebuild it. You're losing kids to different schools, transferring, playing without a home field for a year. So credit to Coach Hunter for keeping his guys and making them feel like they can believe. And, oh, by the way, they've got a big one, the Northwest Classic, 1 week from tomorrow.
Oh, man, we'll have to get into that, too. That is one of the best scenes throughout the entire year when Raines and Ribault get together on that Saturday during the high school football season. Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green of 1010XL. This is Friday Night Lights presented by Farah and Farah. Games going on all over Northeast Florida. We'll give you another complete scoreboard update. We'll take a look around the entire area. We'll also talk about the midseason, some of the better teams, the better coaches, the better players as we roll on under the Friday Night Lights, and we are glad you are with us.
This is Bruce, who knows the importance of covering breaking news until it's safe. He knows this because he has 7 kids he worries about. And here's Weather Authority Katie, tracking severe weather minute by minute, and she always lets you know the best time to walk your dog. Together, they kickstart your day right on the morning show, only on News4Jax and News4Jax Plus.
News4Jax is all about community.
Very good to see you. It's local voices and stories that matter most.
Always connecting, always listening, searching for solutions, and getting answers to the questions you care about most.
We've always got your back.
News4Jax and News4Jax Plus, Jacksonville's most watched newscast.
Channel 4 celebrates the people who are positively Jags.
I would be stuck here without somebody to help.
It's okay. From a cup of water providing a stream of hope.
I've actually got water.
To help, knocking on the door of a local veteran unable to leave his home. Awe-inspiring stories of our community putting others first.
Positively Jax, only on News4Jax.
It's all or nothing, no in between. So let me tell you what that really means. Let's start the show, fully charged. We just letting you know it's all or nothing.
We are back with a new season. Join us for a full half hour of scores, highlights, and features on Varsity 4 football.
Fridays at 10:30. Presented by the accident attorneys at Farah and Farah.
Is this thing on? What are we even doing here? It's now football time.
GMFB Overtime on CW17.
I love CW17. It's the Jackson stuff.
It's one of the great stations.
If you miss this electric cinematic moment.
Look at this fan's reaction when Tank thinks we just did. Oh, come here.
So happy he looks.
That guy, give him that hug. I love you.
You are definitely a Jag super fan.
5 days a week.
Let's go.
GMFB Overtime. Weekdays at 10 on CW17.
Authority helps you stick to your routine when the weather weathers. Always watching, always tracking. This is Mel from The Morning Show. She's your secret source for keeping your children safe because she's a champion for families. This is Bruce. His corny dad jokes are no secret.
Kind of shy and won't come out of his shell.
He's your answer guy for the questions that matter to you. This is Jen, making sure you're in the know about scams and recalls. She's serious about safety.
Wearing a helmet, bike helmet, bike helmet.
Together, they kickstart your day right on The Morning Show, only on News4Jax and News4Jax Plus.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season,
Touchdown.
it's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference, it's anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is here. HBCU Go Football, Saturdays this fall, streaming on News4Jax Plus.
It's all or nothing. No in between. So let me tell you what that really means. Let's start the show. Fully charged. We just letting you know it's all or nothing.
We are back with a new season. Join us for a full half hour of scores, highlights, and features on Varsity 4 Football.
Fridays at 10:30. Presented by the accident attorneys at Farah and Farah.
Is this thing on? What are we even doing here? It's now football time.
GMFB Overtime on CW17.
I love CW17. It's the Jackson stuff.
It's one of the great stations.
If you missed this electric cinematic moment,
Look at this fan's reaction to what Tank Bigsby just did. Oh, come here.
look how happy he looks.
That guy, give him that hug. I love you.
You are definitely a Jag super fan.
5 days a week.
Let's go.
GMFB Overtime. Weekdays at 10 on CW17.
It's time for another look at the high school scoreboard, brought to you by Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
All right, with Justin Barney, the hacker Ryan Green, Friday Night Lights 4+, presented by Farah and Farah. Time now for your Superior Fence and Rail scoreboard update. And look, Justin, district play, big games all over the place. Oakley 14-3 over Fletcher. That is a battle of one-loss teams. That is a big one. We followed Rains and Riverside. That is the Channel 4 varsity game of the week. Rains a big lead right now at halftime, 28-0 in the backyard over Riverside. Jackson 30-15 over Wolfson in a district matchup. We got early action. Ponte Vedra, the last score we had was 7-0 over Fleming Island in a big game there. And as we've been following St. Augustine and Lake City, Columbia, let's go back down to St. Johns County. Second quarter action between the Tigers and the Yellow Jackets. St. Augustine still up 21-7.
Yeah, there was a Jackets fumble, I believe, and then Columbia could not do anything with it. Just missed a field goal, 21-7. Still, the Yellow Jackets, as they tried to make it to the second half of the season officially with a 6-0 record. They're 5-0 this week, one of the few undefeated teams still remaining in the area, and this is basically a de facto district championship game. The winner here, while not officially sewing it up yet, this is the most difficult challenge in this pretty lean district for both those teams.
You know, we talk about this Friday night maybe being a redemption Friday night of sorts. You look at teams that had tough losses last week. Nice, a tough loss to St. Augustine. Mandarin getting their doors blown off by IMG. And Oakleaf, a very disappointing performance against Bowles. Let's look at all three of those. Right now, early for Nice against Gainesville-Buchholz. The last score I had was Buchholz 7-0. It's a tough putt for Nice tonight going into Gainesville. So I don't really know how we're going to know if they're responding. Because like you said, even if they lose tonight, they're losing to another really good football team.
Yeah, and Buchholz is so good. It's just been cyclical. I mean, they are just boom, even through coaching changes and graduations. I mean, they are really, really strong. They've become one of those programs that almost like a St. Augustine to me, where it's kind of set it and forget it. And, Nice, when they started their really arc under Colin Drafts was, I want to say 4 years ago, and they made it to the regional final. They got down there. I think Marcus Stokes was a junior. They had Dom Henry at receiver, who was our offensive player of the year, and just had Cam Mills with a big sack there for Columbia as we break into that game.
He's
Transfer from Mandarin.
Good player.
Great player. But back to the Nice thing, I mean, they really started their arc during that season 4 years ago, and it ended with a loss to Buchholz in the regional finals. And Colin Drafts and company have just kept it going and going and going. But Buchholz is, to me, that measuring stick in Region 1-6A. And as good as Nice has been in Colin Drafts these last 4 years, you've got to beat, to paraphrase Ric Flair, right? to get where you're going, you got to beat the best.
To be the man, you got to beat the man.
I don't want to plagiarize him, so trademark infringement or something like that. But yeah, you got to beat the man, and Buchholz has been the man in Region 1-6A for quite some time. And Nice, they did beat them last year in the regular season. Didn't get a chance on them in the playoffs, and tonight is a measuring stick game for Nice because if you lose this one, you're not winning the district championship.
No.
You're going to have to play from the outside. You can still succeed, but Nice was undefeated in the regular season last year. They beat Buchholz in the regular season and won a district championship. So, yeah, you've got to show you can bang with these boys and win this game.
And the issue for Nice, if they were to lose tonight, then you question yourself a little bit. That would be 2 losses in a row. That would be a little bit tough. We'll keep you updated. But again, Buchholz up by a touchdown is the last score we had. Another redemption situation for Oakleaf, who did not have a good performance last week in a home loss to Bowles. Boy, they might have the most impressive game going right now. They lead Fletcher 21-3 in the second quarter.
Oakleaf, to me, and this is surprising to me because I thought Oakleaf would have one of the best offenses in the area this year. I mean, Jack McKissick was my number 2 rated quarterback in the area this year behind T.J. Cole and right in front of Eddie Jordan. I thought McKissick and company were going to light it up. Trace Burney transferred from Fleming Island to Oakleaf. He was an unbelievable receiver last year for Fleming Island. I thought with the addition of him, you got Fareed Coleman running the ball. I thought Oakleaf was going to come out and be racking up these Daytona 500 kind of laps out there. I thought they were going to be putting up numbers each week, track star games, and they just have not done that. They laid an egg last week against Bowles, lost 38-6. So you come back this week, your defense is playing well. Fletcher's got an offense that's solid, but your defense is cracking the heads, and the offense is finally getting back going. Fletcher's got a strong defense. Fletcher's got a really good defense. Elijah Keys in that secondary, they are really good, and they held Nice in check a few weeks ago, lost 22-6. Fletcher did. And Oakleaf tonight is moving the ball and doing well against the Senators in a crucial district game.
It's a big game for both teams, kind of a statement game for both teams, and Oakleaf right now is making that statement. And then finally, Mandarin against First Coast. Now, I think, Justin, Mandarin was the big favorite coming in. First Coast certainly one of the better surprises of the area. But nevertheless, when you lose a game by 50, albeit to IMG, you want to see how Mandarin responds. And so far, through one half of football, Mandarin is responding pretty well.
Yeah, and you feel like Mandarin is on another level. This should be a game that Mandarin goes in and absolutely dominates and wrecks First Coast, and they're doing that. But that's a game you want to see. That's a bounce-back game for them because First Coast goes in that game. They're feeling good. They won 2 in a row. They're thinking they can bang heads with the guys in that district, but Mandarin is just too deep in that district, and I felt like they were going to pretty much control that game. Speaking of update on the East, 10-0 now Buchholz after a field goal. Buchholz taking a 2-possession lead against Nice in a very big district game.
Yeah, so Buchholz 10-0. We will keep you updated. Mandarin 21-0 over First Coast. We mentioned Oakleaf 21-3 over Fletcher. A couple other scores rolling in. Again, we're keeping an eye on Lake City, Columbia, and St. Augustine. Oh, there was a pass that was deflected. Columbia's having trouble, Justin. The St. Augustine defense really getting after Lake City, Columbia right now.
Tell you who's not having trouble, and that's Reigns. Another touchdown for the Vikings, and they are up now, just about to trigger some running clock time, pending this PAT. TJ Cole with another touchdown pass there, and they are in control at the backyard. Nice touchdown pass to Mr. Zion Butler, one of the best receivers on that Reigns Vikings team. So 34-0 if that's penalty hold, if that touchdown holds, but not sure if that will or if that was waved off.
Yeah, might be a penalty flag there on Reigns, so we'll see what happens. But again, they're in well in control of that game on the backyard there.
Bowles 38-21 over Baldwin.
I saw that.
Surprised that Baldwin's got 21 points.
Well, Baldwin put 48 on Baker County last week, so Baldwin can score.
Baker County of Bowles.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, Dylan Denmark, the guy I do the radio show with after this on Friday Night Lights, my producer on Hacker After Dark, he's on the Baldwin staff, and he thought that they would be able to score on Bowles. He just didn't know if they'd be able to stop Bowles, and that's kind of coming to fruition. That Bowles offense is a well-oiled machine right now. Quickly, Creekside 28-18 over Sandalwood. We got Jackson 30-15 over Wolfson. Again, all these are district games. This is not a district game, I don't think. No, I believe it's not. University Christian 21-0 over Santa Fe. Tallahassee Godby a 10-3 lead over Baker County. And as you go on down the scoreboard here, Bartram has added another touchdown. They lead Decoy 21-7. Now, let me ask you about a huge game going on right now. In fact, a couple of huge games going on right now up to our neighbors in the north in the state of Georgia. Is it Valdosta and Camden tonight? That's a big one.
Huge game up the road in Kingsland, and both those teams 5-0. Valdosta, of course, the Wildcats, and Camden County, of course, the Wildcats. The bad Wildcats from Valdosta, for our viewers in the coverage region, up 21-6 in that game. And that game every year is just so big up there, whether it's in Valdosta, whether it's in Kingsland. And those are region guys. That's a huge region battle between those. Those guys are in 1-6A, and that is a brutal region. So regions are equivalent to like districts here in Florida. The top 4 teams in each region make the state playoffs up in the GHA bracket. Okay, let me tell you who's in Camden County's region. Lowndes and Valdosta, which are, they call Lowndes County Titletown.
Yeah.
Because Lowndes and Valdosta are monsters when it comes to high school football. Camden County's in there. Richmond Hill's in there, which is a darn good program. Colquitt County is in there. Tift County is in there. So every team in Region 1-6A is undefeated. Or not undefeated. Well, they're over 500. I'm trying to say 3-2 and higher, including Camden County and Valdosta, both 5-0. The winner in that game has got a good inside track to that region championship and a number 1 seed in the playoffs. That is imperative whoever to win that game. And right now, Camden County is going to have to get something going to do that. But Valdosta, Camden. I remember when I just first started working for the Times Union, and we used to have the Georgia Times Union edition. So we, some staff would go to Florida games, other staff would go to Georgia games, and I went up and covered a Valdosta game for the first time. And man, football is so different up there in Georgia. And we've got some really good football teams here. Florida football's fun, but man, Georgia high school football, to me, there's nothing like it. I've never been to a Texas high school football game. I've never been to a Georgia game that doesn't blow anything out of the water here, with the exception of Range Rebalts or maybe a Nice Ponte Vedra on a smaller scale. I went to a Charlton Brunswick game that was absolutely fantastic. I went to a Valdosta game, which is next level. Glenn and Brunswick, Glenn Academy of Brunswick, who are playing right now up there in Brunswick. Unbelievable game. Just Georgia high school football is nothing like it.
And I was going to ask you about that, because every time you bring up Georgia high school football, we always talk about the coaching salaries, and that's basically where the conversation stops. Obviously, the coaches in Georgia make a lot more money than the coaches in Florida, and we could have a whole show on that. But as far as the caliber of athletes, what you actually see on the field, how would you relate it to what we see here in Northeast Florida?
Very, very comparable. And I'm trying to think, when I'm doing a coaching salary story, I was talking to a gentleman from the Florida Coaches Coalition, and he was talking to, I think he was referencing like Mike Norvell. And Mike Norvell said, hey, I would rather recruit a kid from a Georgia high school than a Florida high. If he's picking one or the other, he said, my preference would be recruiting a kid from a Georgia high school, because we know what their coaches are. These coaches are mini college coaches in a sense. You're making 6 figures if you're a high school coach in Georgia. You got the facilities there, the weight programs. Everything in Georgia is, they say everything is bigger in Texas. Well, everything is bigger in Georgia compared to Florida. So Norvell was saying, hey, I'd rather recruit an athlete from a Georgia high school than a Florida one, because they've been prepared better, they've been trained better, they come from a system, weight rooms that are almost like a poor man's college weight room. So it's just so much different in Georgia. Now the quality of players are, I mean, Florida's, right in the mix with Texas, California in terms of the quality of player that comes out. But I think in terms of the athlete that a college coach would like to recruit, I mean, Mike Norvell has been on the record as saying, hey, I would rather, it's easier for me to recruit a kid who plays at a Georgia high school program because they are so much better in infrastructure, facilities, resources they have around them than Florida.
Yeah, look, and Mike Norvell actually was here in town, was it last week? He went to Mandarin IMG, also St. Augustine Nice. Mike Norvell's got some of his own problems right now. Apparently they're trailing Virginia 7-0 in the first quarter, so we'll keep you updated on that as well. A little Friday night college football, which, by the way, I hate that. As a high school guy, I hate and it's the ACC that does it for the most part. It's not a Florida State thing. I hate the fact that the ACC decides to play Friday night football.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I remember a few years ago when they did, I was in St. Augustine, when Florida State played on a Friday night for the first time. And I'm thinking, what? It's high school football Friday nights, guys. Come on, man.
I totally agree. But back to your thoughts on Georgia. There's such good, and again, that's out of our listening area on the radio. I know you guys at Channel 4, you guys have broadcast up there, but it is good to know that the caliber of football in southeastern Georgia is so good compared to where we are in northeastern Florida.
It's Georgia, southeast Georgia football is so good. In that Camden-Valdosta series, Camden-Valdosta have a rich history. Camden actually trails in that series all time 7-10-1. But regardless, Travis Rowland is up there at Camden County now doing a good job. Jeff Herron was there before there, built Camden into just remarkable program. He is to Georgia football what Corky Rogers was to Florida high school football, or Verlin Dormany was to high school football.
Wow, what a touchdown.
Unbelievable touchdown catch there. For, I believe that's Ethan Sherman again.
It was about 50 yards plus. That was a bomb of a throw.
That was a remarkable throw and catch. Well, they didn't get it the first time. They got it that time, right? They pulled that one in. I think that initial touchdown was wiped off by a penalty. Well, that one was not. Ethan Sherman with a beautiful distance of the field touchdown strike from T.J. Cole. Man, Raines just pouring it on.
Yeah, Raines is absolutely rolling right now. It's funny we're talking about southeastern Georgia. Let's go to the northernmost point of Florida. Pretty good rivalry tonight in Nassau County between West Nassau and Fernandina Beach.
Yeah, and that's a big one because, we've talked about them in passing earlier on with them being in the Sunshine State Athletic Association. These two teams were many years, West Nassau especially, were packaged in a district with Raines or Bowles or one of them or both of them. And you never, as good of a team, I remember when Casey Healy was at West Nassau and Ricky Armstrong, well, as good of a program as you would have at West Nassau, you knew that you were not going to go to the playoffs because you had Kilimanjaro on one side of you and then Everest on the other side of you. You just never were going to get to the postseason. So Fernandina Beach, West Nassau, they left the FHA playoff structure and joined the Sunshine State Athletic Association.
And it was a bold move because they got some criticism over that.
Yeah, that's right. When you're historically tradition-rich program, West Nassau, Fernandina, the two oldest schools in Nassau County, and when you make a move like that and join kind of this offshoot conference, SSAA, a growing conference, but nonetheless one that is not as big or well known, yeah, you're going to get a little bit of static, and that's what happened. They did, but I like the fact that they did it. They both went to the playoffs last year. West Nassau won the regular season game. They go to the playoffs, and they lose to Fernandina Beach in the playoffs. That Fernandina Beach parlays that into a trip to the state championship game last year, where they did lose, but nonetheless they got there. And players at both schools asked both teams how excited they were to rematch again. And West Nassau kids were just saying, got that one circled on the calendar because they had a whole off season. Gunnar Cox, I talked to him after that, and I said, that loss in the playoffs to Fernandina, after you'd already beaten them pretty handily, they come back and beat you in the game that matters. And what happened? He says, wow, you can ask my wife. I was not a pleasant guy to be around for a couple weeks because it was it left a bad taste in our mouth. So that game tonight, bragging rights, of course, but you feel like it's the first of two meetings this year because those guys will see one another again. I think I think both those teams could get to that SSA championship game and win. I think they're both that good this year. They've improved West Nassau kind of more the old school running game where they have three running backs that are just pounding it. and then you got Fernandina more the passing game when you got Beckham, Rohi, and I'm trying to think of quarterback's name. I can't remember their quarterback's name, but they've been, I think it's Aiden Poe, have been just tearing the ball up through the air. So it's kind of like the vertical attack meets the ground attack for the first of what I think will be two meetings this year.
And it's an important game for West Nassau because they lost to Yulee last week, and you don't want to lose to Yulee and then 7 days later lose to Fernandina Beach. That would not go well in that county for a lot of West Nassau fans, West Nassau alums. So a very important game tonight in Nassau County. You know, we talked about earlier Bartram and Riverside last week, both getting off the schneid, if you will. Both were 0-4, surprising 0-4s. What team would propel last week's win into maybe turning around their season? Well, we're watching Riverside right now. I don't know if it's fair to expect them to beat Rains. Obviously, Rains is maybe the best team in the area. I do think Bartram, though, is about to win their second game in a row. They're up 2 touchdowns on Tocoi Creek. And again, in a district matchup tonight for Bartram Trail, it does appear winning that game last week has really propelled them now into the second half of their season.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got to win those games. I mean, you're not out of the playoffs by any stretch. You played a tough schedule. I mean, the only real loss for Bartram that you kind of shake your head at was the Creekside game, and that's a huge rivalry game as well. So anything can happen in the rivalry games, but you played Ware County. I mean, you played some good teams, so you're not losing to bad programs at all. Bartram, maybe that win last week over Orange Park was just kind of the jolt you needed, the shot you needed in the arm to kind of get you up off the mat and say, hey, there's a season left to play, guys. I mean, we're 1-4 right now, but we don't have to stay 1-4. We can keep stacking wins. We can keep stacking them. So, and especially, I alluded to this earlier, I mean, you don't want to be, the county games mean more. You don't want to be in a county where every other team can look at you and say, God, you guys stink. You guys are the worst guys in the county. You know, when St. Joe is down there undefeated and putting up numbers, and you don't want to be. I worked in St. Johns County before. I've heard plenty of the antics and the chirping and stuff from kids, from parents. You guys stink. You guys are the worst teams in the county. So, yeah, it means a little bit more in those smaller counties.
And you look in St. Johns County, I mean, we're watching St. Augustine there at halftime against Lake City, Columbia, 21-7. The Yellow Jackets lead, one of the best teams in the area. We talk about Beachside having a great year, Nice having a great year, Ponte Vedra right in the mix of it. Tocoi Creek, the team Bartram's playing right now, is also having a very good year. That entire county is just loaded with talent. Bragging rights abound, and you don't want to be the team that is considered to be the worst team in that county, as you mentioned, and Bartram climbing up the ranks here, looking to get their second win in a row.
Yeah, and it's big, district game. But really, every team in St. Johns County is having a quality year. Even they're not 11-man anymore, but Florida Def, another good team down there. Of course, they play their games on Thursday nights, but good quality football in St. Johns County, and pretty solid when you have this many schools, and all of them are really good.
Why are they all so good? I mean, you covered that county for a while.
I think they're well coached. I think they've got a ton of parent support, and I think you got good football players down there too. And when you got guys, I look at what Joey Wild, how long he was at St. Augustine. When you got Daryl Sutherland, how long he was at Bartram Trail. I mean, Corey Johns is just the second coach in Bartram history.
Right.
And
you're talking about 25 years, right?
Unbelievable. When Bartram opened in 2000, we're in 2025. It's pretty remarkable that you had coaches there. You know, Brian Braddock at St. Augustine now, he may as well have been there for so long. He was a coach at St. Augustine, played at St. Augustine, coached under Wiles at St. Augustine before coming back to replace Joey. Sean McIntyre's got a little bit of the gray beard now in St. Johns County in terms of how long he's been there. So I think it really, when you look at St. Johns County as a whole, you've had a lot of coaches who have been there for a little bit of time. Ponte Vedra hasn't had that staying power. Of course, Creekside has kind of been up and down until Sean. The Beachside new, but you've still got the same coach there, Pete Duffy. So you've got a lot of coaches who've been there. You got buy-in from parents. Even Menendez has got a little something going, and Menendez for a long time was really, really, really lean, kind of the redheaded stepchild of St. Johns County in terms of football success, but they've even turned things around. So I think every school there has certain things going for it that other schools in our region just don't.
We see Riverside marching the ball down a little bit. Rains getting some of the younger players in. Obviously, the score is a little bit out of hand. Rains is going to cruise to a victory, wanting to get some of their young guys some experience. Riverside looking to get on the board. You never want to be shut out in a game like this. So hopefully Riverside can punch it across the goal line there to get a little something going for them heading in to next week. First Coast has added a touchdown. They now trail Mandarin 21-7 in the third quarter. And Justin, you talked about Ed White. Not the greatest schedule to this point. Merritt Island, probably a little bit higher in competition. Right now I have Ed White 28-17 over Merritt Island.
That's good. That's good for Ed White. I think when I looked at 2 games on their schedule and said if they can win these games, they can go undefeated. And Merritt Island was number 1. And I thought the Trinity game in week 1, I didn't know what Trinity had. Trinity a close one last year against Ed White they pulled away from. But Ed White won that game going away. I mean, big time performance there. Ed White has got good players. And I say it again, I'm not belittling the team when I say you haven't played anybody. I'm just saying your quality of competition is not allowing it to be shown how good of a team you are. I mean, if Reigns beating Sandalwood 77-0, yeah, okay, yeah, you dropped a big number on your guys, but you're supposed to. I mean, how good are you when you can kind of get and line up against the Lake Mary, which Reigns showed they're really good, and beat Lake Mary by 48. But you can't tell. I mean, you're supposed to clock those teams. Ed White's supposed to blast Inglewood and West Side. But what happens when you get into the fire in a dogfight against the Merritt Island, which is a really good program at 3-2. The record doesn't tell how good Merritt Island is. And then Oakleaf. Oakleaf's the second game on that Ed White schedule where I say if they can get past an Oakleaf, they've got a chance to be a 10-0 team. Lawrence Johnson has got these guys feeling and believing that they can get there.
Yeah, they're very good. Have a great start of the year and are looking good right now against Merritt Island. Ponte Vedra 21-0 over Fleming. That surprise you?
A little bit. Fleming Island's young, new coaching staff there. Tom McPherson, the old, the well-traveled guy from Ridgeview and Orange Park and Baker County, Bishop Kinney assistant. He's over there now at Fleming Island. And they lost a lot in graduation. They lost a lot in transfer. So it's kind of, Ponte Vedra, I think, was a little more established across the ball, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Cole Rosendahl has been a really good quarterback for Ponte Vedra this year, throwing the ball in his first year as starter. So surprising that Fleming Island hadn't gotten on the board, but not surprised Ponte Vedra's win that game big.
I want to get to some mid-season thoughts as well. Before we get there, back to your Georgia matchup, Valdosta 28-6 over Camden County.
Yeah, I would have picked Valdosta in this game if I was doing Georgia picks, but I figured it would be a little bit closer than that at this point in the game. But Valdosta just another level of football. So Travis Rowland's got his work cut out for him. They're still, if this game holds, which it probably will, Camden's going to be 5-1. Still a good shot in that region. But again, you got tough games coming up. You got Lowndes, Richmond Hill. Really tough schedule for Camden there. I still think they get to the playoffs, but man, you got some tough work ahead of you too in that region.
We spent a lot of time last week on some of the mid-season awards, some of the players, but there were some guys that we left off, and one of them we're watching tonight with Reigns and Riverside. I've heard you talk about TJ Cole an awful lot, the Reigns quarterback. How good is that young man?
Man, he's fun to watch. He's a really good kid, and our reporter Chris Will has been tracking Reigns all season long, and we kind of want to do a little Hard Knocks-esque kind of show with Reigns each week and track him through the season. And Chris Will had a chance to sit down with TJ Cole this week and do like a film study with him. What's he look for in the film room and as he dissects plays and stuff. And it's really cool to kind of hear that insight from TJ as he was going through that with Chris. And our photog Elijah did a really nice job on that. But TJ he's affable, he's fun to talk to, and he's a darn good football player. When you kind of combine all those things, he comes from a really good family because he's always just so personable and affable and just very, very smart as a football player. But really good kid off the field too. And I think he's just, you haven't been able to tell this much this season because, again, Reigns has played 3 games going into tonight, fewest in the area. They bookended, week 6 with week 1 cancellation, week 5 bye week. So you just hadn't seen a lot of TJ Cole this year. I mean, all the games have been blowouts, so he's been going out of the game early. But once they start kind of getting into that stretch run for the playoff, man, you're going to see this kid. He came alive last year when the competition got more and more difficult. He is a fun player to watch. And I know college is probably scared off by his size and That's kind of the unfortunate thing when I look at size like John Wolford.
Right.
You know, he could have gone, had he been 2 inches taller, he could have gone anywhere he wanted to in the country.
And he beat the odds, though, because he ended up in the NFL.
Did, man. He was one of my favorite players I've ever covered, John Wolford. And TJ Cole was in that breath, too, because he's so fun to watch. He's very personable. He's an affable guy, just like John Wolford. And you always knew he had bigger things ahead of him just because the player he was, you know, and the measurables are such a hang-up for some people. And, man, he plays above his measurables.
Let's talk about his head coach, Donovan Maslin. On the tier system of the better coaches in the area, where do we put Donovan Maslin from Reigns?
Yeah, you know, I think until you win a state championship like your predecessor, Duran Wiley, you always kind of say, man, I still have something to achieve. And Donovan got there last year. He was a coordinator on the Range teams that won state championships. But, you know, I mean, he wants to get there. And, you know, if you don't win a state championship, does that make you a bad coach? Absolutely not. Darryl Sutherland played for one title in 20-some-odd years. Does that make him a bad coach? Absolutely not. But that's the crowning achievement if you can get there and bring it home. And I know that after last year, Donovan Maslin was like, there goes TJ Cole again.
Wow.
Wide open strike in the end zone. And Range just target practice out there on Riverside on the field.
They're throwing the ball up 42-0. Is that interesting at this point?
Yeah. You haven't had a lot of work this season.
Oh, it's holding. It's coming back, I believe.
It's coming back.
Yeah, we got a holding penalty.
So TJ will get to throw to another touchdown.
He'll be throwing another touchdown, yeah,
receiver.
2 minutes from now.
Yeah, second down, so you'll get a chance to do that one over again. So we'll get another highlight from TJ here in a minute. But no, I don't think Donovan's, I don't think Donovan Maslin's career is, as incomplete as it is right now because he's only been a head coach for 5, maybe 6 years. I still think he's got plenty of runway. But yeah, a state championship for him is in the mindset and in kind of the focus. I think he's got the team this year to do it. And he reminds me of Wiley in the sense of you came into your program and he didn't take it over on a down note like Wiley did and rebuilt it. I mean, he got it and it was still a pretty good program. His first or second year was really kind of a struggle. I know he kind of felt a little bit humbled by that, and they got back on track and they've been doing it ever since. But, Duran Wiley, he had to beat the Bowleses of the world.
Yeah.
He had to lose those soul-stealing games against Bowles and Corky Rogers to kind of make him and his staff good. Good. You're steeled in games like that, and the heartbreaks that they endured. And you get to a state championship, and then you implode against Booker T. Washington like what happened in Range's championship debut under Duran Wiley. Maslin, get there last year. You get absolutely humbled, humiliated, 41-0 by Miami Northwestern. You don't believe he's taken that into his offseason, and he's chewed and he's stewed on that. And you talk to him, you talk to the players. They know what happened last year, and they're using that for this year. But I think Donovan, he's a Reigns guy, he's a Northwest Jax guy. He grew up there. He knows what that tradition, what it means, and everything, how important it is to breathe and live and sleep and eat football. And I believe Donovan will get a state championship before he calls it a career, whether it's this year or next year or the following year. I think he gets one, but he's a really good football coach.
To that point, you read my mind there. All right, state championship winning coaches in the area. David Penland, University Christian, has a couple of rings. Obviously, Verlin Dormany at Trinity.
Yep.
And Bobby Ramsey from Mandarin with a ring now at Jackson. I believe those are the three.
Toby Bullock has one assistant.
Toby Bullock has an assistant, not as a head coach, as an assistant. And maybe he'll come up in this conversation. Donovan Maslin, Reigns. Brian Braddock, St. Augustine. Yep. Toby Bullock, Mandarin. Matt Toblin, Bowles.
I think Steve Price may have one as a head coach as well.
Okay, Steve, but not at Ponte Vedra.
Not at Ponte Vedra.
Right. Who is going to be the next person in our area to get a state championship ring at the head coaching position?
Man alive. Let me see. On the clock, put me on the clock here. I'm going to say.
Now, a lot of it goes into who you have to go through in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to say Matt Toblin. I think he gets one. I think this year's his best shot to get one. You don't have to go through a Gadsden County. You don't have to go through a Newberry. Jamie Rogers, I think, could probably get one if Cocoa is down a little bit more like they had been. Maybe it's Bradford and Bowles come playoff time. Jamie Rogers gets one there, but I don't know. Trinity's got a tough haul.
Yeah.
UC's got a tough haul. So I would say probably Toblin would be my number one guy. Maslin would be my number two.
See, the problem you mentioned this with Toby at Mandarin and with Brian Braddock at St. Augustine, great programs, great coaches. Again, Bullock has one as an assistant, not as a head coach.
And Brian as well.
They're going to ultimately see teams from Miami.
Yeah.
And that's not going to probably go well.
It's the nature of the beast now in the world you live in terms of where the region and state semifinals and everything kind of breaks in. You know, Toblin, I think at Bowles, with how their region sets up, you don't have Gadsden County in there anymore, so I think Bowles could coast through that region with the talent that they have this year. And then you get down, and then you're talking maybe a Bradford, somebody else in that mix, a Cocoa. I think you can bang with those guys. I think this is Bowles' chance to win this year. And yeah, I think Mandarin is limited. I think Nice is probably limited. Oakleaf is probably limited in there. You've got to have so much on your side to win a state championship. And I think when you run into one of these super teams, I mean, Trinity last year was a really good team. What do you have to do? You got to go down and play Chaminade and take your running clock loss. St. Augustine, really good, but you got to go down and play Plantation American Heritage in the state semifinal and take your loss there. The Mandarins and the Oakleafs and those guys, I just don't think you have enough to contend once you get down and have to bang with those bigger schools from down south who have a lot more. So if I had to lay money on the line, I would say probably Bowles and Toblin would be my pick to get a state championship first. And I would put Donovan Maslin right behind him.
And I'm certainly rooting for Toblin, for Maslin. Brian Braddock's another one. Great coaches in our area that do such great work, have made deep playoff runs, just haven't gotten that ultimate goal yet. Hopefully one day all of them will. But certainly this year, all three look like they're in prime position, including Maslin at Rains and Toblin at Bowles. Quickly, because I want to talk about a former Bowles quarterback in a moment. Before we get there, if you had to give out the Justin Barney Player of the Year, the midseason Player of the Year, again, most teams are halfway home. Some teams will be over halfway home after tonight's action. Still could change, but based on what you've seen 5-6 weeks into the year, who is the best player in Northeast Florida in 2025 from what we've seen so far?
Man alive, this is tough. We usually split them into offensive and defensive, and I think probably the best player is probably Bryson Wright in terms of what he does in best overall player. I'm going to say Bryson in terms of receiving, special teams, defense ability. I don't think there's even a close second. He does everything on that side of the ball, this side of the ball, and this side of the ball. He's so good at everything. If I'm giving out just an offensive player of the year right now, it's probably Xander Edwards at Bowles and how well he's run the ball.
And think about that. Think about those two guys you just named. What, sophomores?
Yeah,
both
great
guys?
If I'm looking at like a truly defensive player of the year, maybe like an Asher Gitto or a Cam Mills. But there's so many good players, and playoffs is almost the separator in terms of how who these guys step up and everything. But Xander Edwards has been phenomenal to run behind that offensive line and carry that load for Bowles. When you got guys, Samorian Wingo, Brenton James, it's so many of those guys in there. I mean, Brenton James could make a case for player of the offensive player of the year. TJ Cole, although you haven't really seen it in terms of the competition yet with Rains. But as the season goes on and the playoffs wear on and stuff, the guys always separate themselves. But my short list, Bryson Wright, Asher Gitto, Brenton James, Samorian Wingo, TJ Cole, Cam Mills, pick from among those guys. Jacob Curry, if you want to split it out a little bit more defensive-wise, but, man, it is going to be tough.
You mentioned Brenton James and Samarian Wingo. They're about to start second-half action down in St. Augustine. The Yellow Jackets lead Lake City, Columbia 21-7. We'll take you back out there once the third quarter gets underway. I mentioned I wanted to bring up a former Bowles quarterback, Mac Jones, former Jaguar as well. But Mac Jones won a couple of games for the San Francisco 49ers in Brock Purdy's place. It looks like Brock Purdy will get the start on Sunday against the Jaguars, but Mac did a great job. And it got us thinking just about the caliber of player that comes out of Northeast Florida. You rattle off the current guys in the National Football League. Justin, there's a ton of guys from Northeast Florida that are playing in the NFL.
A lot of them. I mean, guys, Derrick Henry jumps off the board to you. I've covered so many of these guys. It's just so crazy to think about. These guys are, in the mid-career arc or the down end of their career. And, you covered these guys in high school. And
Derrick Henry's going to get a gold jacket in Canton, Ohio one day.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Derrick Henry, I covered his last season in high school, which was the 2012 season. just remarkable to think that since that season, which was the greatest season by a high school player in national history in terms of rushing the ball, Derrick Henry was just phenomenal that season. Broke a 69-year-old record of Ken Hall, the Silverland Express. Led Yulee to the state semifinals.
Did I ever tell you that story with
the
Ken?
Sugarland Express.
The Sugarland Express.
Sugarland.
So we had Ken Hall on our program.
Yes, I gave Joe Cowart the number.
Yes, that's right. You did.
Yeah.
That was a Justin Barney. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, we had Derrick Henry in studio and had him on the phone with Ken, and Ken congratulated him the week after Derrick broke that national record. That was one of the coolest things I've done on a radio show.
Yep, so cool, so cool. It just such a remarkable time. I remember talking to Ken on the phone, and I was at the Yulee game the night Derrick broke that national record, and I called Ken earlier in that day. I said, "I'm gonna call you when Derrick breaks that record." He go, "Okay, call me and let me know what's going on." I called him. He was probably in his 80s at the time, and I called him from the press box, and he heard all the screaming in the background. He's like, "Let me guess, he broke it." And I said, "Yeah, you're the number 2 on the list now." So, but he was gracious and really cool. But Derrick Henry, I mean, that point, Derrick's 17 years old and unbelievable season, and Derrick was always Mr. Yulee, Mr. Teammates, never about himself, and really just so cool to be a part of that. But Derrick's at the tail end of his career now in the NFL, and he's going to be in Canton one day, and that's just remarkable to think about. Demario Douglas, receiver of the Patriots, won a state championship with Mandarin, now in his 3rd year in the league with the Patriots. I mean, rattle off the list of names. Will Mallory, former Providence guy, the Colts. Jamari Connor from Trinity Christian, he's with the Chiefs. Xavier Hutchinson had a good game against the Jaguars back in town here against the Texans last Sunday. Warren McClendon up the road from Georgia. I mean, Cooper Hodges with the Jags. Injuries, of course, blunted his NFL rise. Jalen Rivers of Oakleaf with the Bengals. I mean, the list goes on. Patrick Bryant.
That's the one. Pat Bryant at Atlantic Coast was a great wide receiver. He went on to the University of Illinois. So people here, as Raines, I believe, scores again, as my goodness, what Raines is doing to Riverside right now. But Pat Bryant, you kind of lost track of him because he went to the University of Illinois, had a great career up there. I can tell you, people out in Denver love Pat Bryant.
Yeah.
They think he's going to be a very good player for them.
Yeah, and I think, his catch radius, his ability to catch the ball, hold on to it and everything, just remarkable to see him grow. And he was a guy that stayed at Atlantic Coast and hung with his program. It wasn't a big program when he was there, and he comes from a great family and loyalty and everything. He was he was Atlantic Coast to the core and did that, and it was really cool to see. And get drafted, go to the NFL, awesome story.
He's a very easy kid to root for. Pat Bryant, I've talked to a lot of kids over the years, and Pat Bryant's one of my favorites because he is a very polite, generous young man, and I am certainly rooting for Pat Bryant. But again, it just goes to show you, we tell people every year, go out, enjoy these games under the Friday night lights. As much as we'd like you to watch us every Friday, take a road trip to a game on Friday night, experience it, because, Justin, the players you're seeing tonight will not only be playing on Saturdays in college, but will someday be in the National Football League.
Yeah, just crazy. And that last Raines score, a Sharif Jackson interception, unbelievable player to watch in Raines. Under 3 minutes to play in that game. Sharif Jackson, 35-yard interception return for a touchdown. And we're going to probably shift away from that game now so our photog can head down to the field and talk to Donovan Maslin after that big win, soon to be 3 minutes from now. So going to stay with this St. Augustine-Columbia game as we prepare to kick off the second half down there. Raines is going to go to 4-0 with one of the biggest wins in this rivalry's history against Riverside, but St. Augustine trying to hold on to this second half lead against Columbia.
Yeah, they're underway in the third quarter. Quickly, I have Bowles 45-28 over Baldwin.
Crazy.
Does that surprise you?
Yeah, a little surprised after really good defensive performances from Bowles. I mean, Baldwin putting it on tonight.
Yeah, it's a lot of points for Baldwin. I mean, there's not a lot of teams that put 28 on Bowles, and Baldwin has been able to do that. As again, St. Augustine 21-7 over Columbia, third quarter action.
Yep.
Menendez 23-8 over Westside. Bartram Trail has added another touchdown. They lead to Coy Creek now 27-7. Bishop Kenny's got a running clock. They are on top of Parker. Yulee has taken the lead over Ribault, Justin. At halftime, Yulee now 17-8 over Ribault.
Yeah, and you figured that was coming. Really good. Yulee's a good team, and they're still relatively young. They went from 9-3 to 2-8, and now they're 5-0.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of weird to sandwich that 2-8 season in there, but a lot of that Yulee team was really, really young, and they're still really young, and they're performing well. And it's going to come down to Yulee for Rains for a district championship. That game later on in the season, but Yulee doing what I expected they do to Riverside or to Revolt.
NFEI 14-6 over Kipbold City right now. Still Tallahassee Godby on top of Baker County 10-3. Baker County is a team I thought might have turned a corner. That was a big win for them against Baldwin last week. Playing at Tallahassee Godby, a good Godby team. It's a defensive battle, but they trailed 10-3 in the third quarter.
Yeah, and it's another team. Baker County's a young team, new coach, new coaching guy, new faces over there after Kevin Mays left. And they had some injuries early on as well. So nice to see Baker County get back on the horse. You know, they started out difficult. I think they were 1-3. They lost to Bradford, got beat pretty big by Ponte Vedra. And it looks like St. Augustine, Samorian Wingo in. I believe that's his 6th touchdown of the season for the Yellow Jackets. And St. Aug is taking control in this one. And barring a Columbia majestic comeback, it's going to be 28-7 in the third quarter. I don't think Columbia is going to mount a comeback in this game. I think the district championship runs through St. Augustine and Foots Brumley Stadium, and Brian Braddock and company marching along towards an undefeated regular season. And we've got a final at Rains now. That one is 49-0. Rains Vikings move to 4-0.
Yeah, Samarian Wingo, Miami Hurricane fans are licking their chops. He is a Miami commitment, the St. Augustine wide receiver, and that was a great slant route. Brenton James finds him for the score. And it's kind of surprising, 28-7. I'm not surprised St. Augustine's winning, certainly. Columbia is a really good football team this year, and to be down 28-7, what an effort by St. Augustine.
Yeah, I mean, came out with the eyes to make a statement this game, and I'm sure Brian Braddock reminded his guys what was at stake, and that's a district championship. Although you can't officially clinch it for a few more weeks, it is all but sewn up with a win here tonight.
Quickly, Nice has added a touchdown in Gainesville. Buchholz leads that game 10-7, a defensive slugfest in the third quarter. You know, we've talked about Nice. It would be a tough matchup for them, and it is. If they beat Buchholz tonight, what a statement from Nice.
Yeah, man, that would be crazy to bounce back from that St. Augustine loss. Go on the road to Gainesville Buchholz and beat a team that's been to the state semifinals 4 times in a row. And I think that, in a sense, gives you a little bit of momentum, confidence, whatever you want to call it, going into region play, because you're going to make the state playoffs. You know you're going to have to see Buchholz again. I don't see any scenario where Buchholz is not playing in that regional final with one of our local teams. So that's huge, huge confidence. Remember we talked about midseason players of the year was Xander Edwards, why I mentioned his name first.
Yep.
5th rushing touchdown just a few seconds ago as Bowles leads 52-28 over Baldwin. Xander Edwards is a grown man as a sophomore. He is phenomenal. 5 rushing touchdowns tonight.
Absolutely incredible. Bowles 52-28. They lead Baldwin in the district opener there for both clubs. Justin Barney of Channel 4. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. This is Friday Night Lights on 4+ presented by Farah and Farah. We'll come back, another complete scoreboard update, and the night is just getting started. We'll let you know what Justin has on the TV side. We'll let you know what I have on the radio side. We're glad you're with us as the Friday Night Lights roll on, and we'll be right back.
The weather keeps us on our toes. 1 minute it's sunny, the next minute, pop-up showers.
And that's why we plan for quick changes. Letting you know the exact minute you'll need a jacket, an umbrella, or some flip-flops.
Before things turn messy, with spot-on alerts wherever you are. There are no surprises when you... This is Jen from The Morning Show, your go-to problem solver. She even got a shout-out from this nice lady. This is Bruce, who knows the importance of covering breaking news until it's safe. He knows this because he has 7 kids he worries about. And here's Weather Authority Katie, tracking severe weather minute by minute, and she always lets you know the best time to walk your dog. Together, they kickstart your day right on The Morning Show, only on News4Jax and News4Jax Plus.
News4Jax is all about community.
Very good to see you. It's local voices and stories that matter most.
Always connecting, always listening, searching for solutions, and getting answers to the questions you care about most.
We've always got your back.
News4Jax and News4Jax Plus, Jacksonville's most watched newscast.
Channel 4 celebrates the people who are positively Jags.
I would be stuck here without somebody to help.
It's okay. From a cup of water providing a stream of hope.
I've actually got water.
To help, knocking on the door of a local veteran unable to leave his home. All inspiring stories of our community putting others first.
Positively Jax, only on News4Jax.
It's all or nothing, no in between. So let me tell you what that really means. Let's start the show, fully charged. We just letting you know it's all or nothing.
We are back with a new season. Join us for a full half hour of scores, highlights, and features on Varsity 4 Football.
Fridays at 10:30. Presented by the accident attorneys at Farah and Farah.
Is this thing on? What are we even doing here? It's now football time.
GMFB Overtime on CW17.
I love CW17. It's the Jackson stuff.
It's one of the great stations.
If you miss this electric cinematic moment,
Look at this fan's reaction to what Take Things We just did. Oh, come here!
look how happy he looks.
That guy, give him that hug. I love you.
You are definitely a Jag super fan.
5 days a week.
Let's go!
GMFB Overtime. Weekdays at 10 on CW17.
By Farah and Farah. Time now for Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters. Scoreboard update. Justin, we are starting to get some finals in from the 6:30 games. Again, 6:30 is when Duval County games begin. The Channel 4 game of the night has already gone final. Rains a dominating 49-0 victory over Riverside. Not surprised Rains won, certainly, but you surprised Riverside didn't put up more of a fight?
Yeah, I mean, Riverside, the last few weeks, has shown a little bit more, must-have. 41 against St. Augustine. You came back and showed some mettle last week against Ribault, but Range just on a different level. 49-0. I think Range has given up like 14 points this season or something like that, or 17 points. They have just been absolutely locking teams down, and man, it's going to be tough because St. Augustine is up 28-7 on Columbia. Range wins 49-0. Who do you got number one?
Boy, I'm going St. Augustine. Because, I mean, if you beat Lake City, Columbia, which St. Augustine is, they already have wins over Bowles and Nice. That resume speaks for itself.
It's pretty impressive. And, Range has Lake Mary, a win over Lake Mary, and that's really it. I mean, they've got, as good as Range looks, they've got one win of merit, and that's over Lake Mary. Other than that, you've got Trinity Christian, one win. Sandalwood hasn't won since Jimmy Carter was in office, is that right?
Wow.
So
unfortunately for them.
So you don't have an impressive resume, so to speak, so far, and I don't think you're going to get that resume until the playoffs. But I said on my podcast this week, I think if St. Augustine dominates Columbia, I'm going to have a hard time keeping them number two.
Yeah, St. Augustine, to me, with their body of work, they have to be number one, at least in my book. All right, Ed White, 28-17 over Merritt Island. We got Mandarin 34-7 over First Coast. It's going to be a good win for Mandarin. Bowles 52-28, an offensive explosion. Again, Bowles, I'm not surprised they're winning the game. Baldwin, though, like we said at the beginning, Baldwin gave him a little bit of a game.
Yeah, really. The line on this game in Vegas this week was 160, I think. So I took the over. I'm in pretty good shape on that one at this point. But yeah, Baldwin, great showing for them. Their offensive explosion from last week carries over. It's one thing doing it against Baker County, another doing it against Bowles. Really good showing for Baldwin, even though it's going to result in a loss.
Creekside 35-18 over Sandalwood is the score we have in the third quarter. What a defensive effort from Oakleaf. After Bowles put over 30 on him last week, Fletcher right now only 3 points in the middle of the third quarter.
Fletcher's offense has been a little bit lagging, even though you do got grown man running the ball well. You got Sticks out there at receiver catching the ball, Joshua Jones. You got some talent, but for whatever reason, Fletcher has struggled offensively in its 2 primetime games, one against Nice and again tonight against Oakleaf. And to me, Oakleaf's calling card this year has been on the defensive side of the ball, and give those guys credit because they're really good. Jordan Price is a really good two-way player, but for whatever reason, Oakleaf on that defense has been phenomenal this year with the exception of last week.
Jackson 38-18 over Wolfson. That'll be a district victory for Bobby Ramsey and the Jackson Tigers. University Christian 21-0 over Santa Fe. Let's stop right here. For a team that's won numerous state championships, we haven't spent a lot of time on University Christian this year. How good are they here in 2025?
They're and the reason why probably not a lot of time spent on UC. Okay, Columbia gets in the end zone right there, so they're not going quietly into the Friday night air. But for University Christian, they played games. Yeah, you play Newberry, you play Tampa Catholic, you play Santa Fe. Those are not games that are going to get local fans excited. Those are games where, and they're good wins. I mean, Santa Fe is undefeated, and UC is clocking them right now. UC's defense is good. After seeing they just dispatched Impact Christian last week, who I thought was going to be a challenge, was not at all. I think Impact scored twice on UC's backups. UC's defense this year has been phenomenal. I was texting David Pinland III last Friday night, and he said, man, our defense, I think UC forced like 6 turnovers. Just unbelievable on the defensive side of the ball. And normally I would pick a Trinity Christian to get past UC. Completely different this year. I think UC makes the state semifinals. The defense that David Pinland III has this year has been lights out.
They got a lot of D1 guys.
And they should not have lost the Bishop Kenny game.
No. And for people that forget, University Christian's down 21-14. They score a touchdown, 21-20, 18 seconds to go, whatever. They're going for 2. Would have walked in for the 2-point conversion, but there was a legal shift or a holding or something, literally right at the snap of the ball, and then the extra point gets blocked. Bishop Kenny wins. You almost think that might have set a fire under University Christian. They've been playing out of their minds ever since that loss.
And they have been good every game, with the exception of the BK game. They have played phenomenal defense. I think the Newberry game in week 1, they had maybe 21 points off takeaways. They have just been dominating on the defensive side of the ball. Really credit to them. UC, when you think about UC historically, has been run. Good running football. Torrin Kersey, Mike Curry, those guys, big offensive line, but UC's defense is cooking this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Menendez 23-8 over Westside. We talk about St. Augustine now up 28. Is it 28-14 over Lake City, Columbia? Yes, it is, with 6:58 to go there in the third quarter. We'll keep you updated on that ball game as well. Bartram, a dominating effort. Bartram 28-7 over Tecoy Creek. Got to wonder where this puts Tecoy. Kind of the luster's a little bit off of them after a good start early in the year. And again, we think Bartram might have found themselves last week with that win over Orange Park.
Huge for them. You stack wins, and suddenly you're back in that mentioning. Okay, Bartram's back on track. Yeah, you lost to Creekside. Yeah, it's still under 500, but you just started your district schedule. You're feeling good, 2 in a row, get some confidence for that offense after a tough start. So, I think you can build off something like tonight.
Bradford County has a running clock. They are up on Keystone 46-0 at halftime. Maybe Bradford's most complete game, because we know Bradford, how good they are on defense. Offensively, they haven't put a ton of points on the board this year. That is not the case tonight.
Yeah, and Keystone they're down, so they're not a team that should be giving Bradford any problems. But, again, beat the teams you're supposed to beat, do what you need to do, but Bradford's got to get some comfort going with its offense. Again, Keystone is a rebuilding team. You're not learning much from this game if you're Bradford. Get out of there healthy, work on some stuff on offense, and get on the rest of your schedule.
Quickly back up to the state of Georgia. Valdosta 42-13 over Camden County is the score we have right now.
Yeah, no, not a good for Travis Rowland and the Wildcats up there. They've been moving the ball well. Had a nice win over Brunswick to start the season. But Valdosta on another level tonight. They're going to win that region game, and Camden County's going to be 5-1.
When you kind of take stock of everything that we've seen, everything we've talked about for almost the last 2 hours here, anything about the scoreboard jump out to you? We got some compelling games that are coming down to the wire, certainly. Some games beginning to go final. But what is your thought overall? Biggest surprise? Anything along those lines tonight?
I can't believe Baldwin has put up that many points on Bowles, to be honest, and in that game. So a little surprising that that Baldwin has that much on Bowles tonight, which is probably a little bit of my takeaway. 28 points for the Indians so far against Bowles.
That will be Matt Toblin's takeaway. I can guarantee you that.
That will be Matt Toblin's takeaway. Gave up way too many points. I can hear him now. Got to button up on defense. But, hey, maybe the book was out on Bowles after 2 games playing in a 4-3 front after switching things around. Maybe Baldwin was able to kind of take advantage of that after seeing 2 games of Bowles running that different defensive front. Maybe BK wasn't prepared for that. Maybe Oakleaf wasn't prepared for that. Not a lot of Bowles in 4-3 on film. So maybe that's what you take away from that if you're Matt Toblin, that teams have seen us now in a different defensive front and know how to adjust a little bit better.
Buchholz has had a field goal, Justin. They lead Nice 13-7. That appears to be a game that is absolutely coming down to the fourth quarter. A defensive slugfest between Buchholz and Nice.
Yeah, and you probably knew it was going to go that way. And Nice is a great defense, a little bit younger on offense. But again, region runs through Buchholz. That to me last year was one of Buchholz's weaker teams than they've had the last few years, and they still made it to the state semifinals. A lot of that team is back this year. They're older, more experienced. You got Williams going to Florida down there. A really good team in Buchholz. You knew it was going to be tough for Nice, and if Nice still got the offense to do it, they got some good players, but you got to get things going and beat Buchholz in its backyard.
Let's give Middleburg some flowers. They're undefeated coming into tonight, probably their biggest test of the year to this point. It will get considerably harder, but to this point, Orange Park tonight, I got Middleburg up 21-0 in the third quarter.
Yeah, not a surprise there. Ryan Wolf and company are good. Haven't played a lot. Their schedule kind of reminds me of Ed White's in a sense. Very backloaded schedule, and that's kind of how it's been for Middleburg under Ryan Wolf. And I think I talked about this last week or the week before. Nice did this when Tebow was there. They built basically a schedule that included 7 homecoming games, and you had the St. Augs, the Palaccas on there that you had to beat to play in district play. But Ryan Wolf's done the same thing. You're playing NFEIs and Zarephaths and teams like that you know you're going to win, but you're not a tradition-based program. You have other schools in Clay County that kids are transferring and going to, and Oakleafs and Flemings. You're not going to win that battle. But when you build something like Ryan has done and staff has done since he's got there, and you're getting guys who would initially go to Clay to come to Middleburg, and you're getting guys that want to come there and be a part of something. And I have no problem with kind of building your schedule a little bit, tailoring it to be a schedule that's going to be more forgiving on the win column and loss column than anything. But hey, build it, and next year schedule some more tougher teams. Middleburg's getting to that point where you want to get away from becoming that 7-3, 6-4 team because you've played 6, lightweight teams and 4 tougher ones or 3 tougher ones. You want to get and take that next step to become that team where you can say, okay, we can bang. We're not going to be an 8 seed in the playoffs anymore. We're going to be a 5 seed because we're better. We're playing better competition.
Tallahassee Godby has added a touchdown. They lead Baker County 17-10 in the third quarter, and Ponte Vedra continues to shut out Fleming Island. Looks like it's going to be a good win for the Ponte Vedra Sharks.
Yeah, good for them and for the rankings points, and certainly you hand Fleming Island a district loss. That's pretty good for Ponte Vedra. You're going to stay out of that purgatory, which would have come with a second district loss because you've already lost to Beachside, and then maybe you kind of hope that Fleming Island can pull off an upset of Beachside later on in the season.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden you're right back into that district championship race.
Let's set the table. What do you have coming up tonight on Channel 4?
Always fun on Friday nights, man. We kind of like your show. We start at 10:30 with all of our highlights from around the area. We go into 11. We talk about Super 10, talk about next week's game of the week. And always fun times on Friday night from 10:30 to 11.
Yeah, I'll leave here the Channel 4 studios. I'll head back over to 1010XL. We'll have Friday Night Lights on the radio. Myself and Dylan Denmark, Victoria's head coaches, all over Northeast Florida. In what has been a very interesting night of high school football. As we begin to wrap up, we talked about your Super 10 list earlier. We talked about the top 2 teams in the area, Justin. Is it Rains? Is it St. Augustine? Is it St. Augustine and then Rains? Give me a 3, 4, and 5 based on results tonight. Does your Super 10 change at all after tonight's activity?
Man, let's say St. Augustine hold on and wins. They just got in the end zone again. They're back up now 35-14, so you're up 21 over my number 4th ranked team. So In terms of wins for St. Augustine, you've got a win over the current number 3 team in Bowles. You've got a win over the current number 4 team in Columbia if this one holds. And you're up 21 points on our number 4 team. And you've got another win. I mean, you got 3 wins over teams in our Super 10. You know, even if Nice loses to Buchholz, I mean, that's a quality win over Nice. You got 3 wins over teams in my top 5. That's insane.
Their resume is the best, and it's not even close.
It's not even close. And yes, Reigns' resume includes a blowout win of Lake Mary. But other than that, you got Trinity Christian, 1 win. Sandalwood, winless. You know, you don't have a lot of meat on that scheduling bone. And
Riverside, 1 win.
Riverside, 1 win. So yeah, you don't have a lot of meat on that scheduling bone. Lake Mary, again, that's a good-looking win. But man, St. Augustine's body of work is so strong at this point.
And you got I would have St. Augustine 1, Reigns 2. Is Bowles 3, even with the loss to St. Aug?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, Bowles was 3 this week. They clocked Oak Leaf last week. You're having a crazy shootout game against Baldwin, but you're still going to win by probably 3 touchdowns or more. I still think Bowles is 3. 4 is where it gets tough. I mean, probably Mandarin for me probably jumps from 6 to 4, and Nice, depending on what happens with Nice, let's just presume they lose. I have them at 5. Then you probably move Nice out of that 5 spot and drop them down a couple. Man, who goes into the 5 spot in this point? Is it Bradford? Is it Ed White after a win over Merritt Island? I don't know. Good question.
We talked about redemption Friday night. Mandarin, big-time win over First Coast. They got over the IMG loss. Looked very good tonight. Oak Leaf is going to have a big-time win over Fletcher in a district game. They responded to that Bowles loss last week. Again, we still have some we don't know about Nice yet. They're down 13-7. As we're watching here, Lake City, Columbia, looks like they've found the end zone. They're not going quietly, as you said. They match a touchdown from St. Augustine, a touchdown of their own. 35-20 now, St. Augustine in the third quarter.
Looks like that was Xavier Collins to maybe Kyron Caldwell on that touchdown for Columbia. So, yeah, Columbia not going quietly into the night. So that gets pinned in this PAT, and if that's officially given a touchdown, which looks like it is, looks like we are going to be back 35-20 pending this PAT, and 35-21 if they hit it. So still a good game down in St. Augustine. Talking maybe too quickly that St. Augustine's going to run away with this one.
6 weeks in, Justin, I enjoyed it.
Man, it's another one. I can't believe we're steaming towards playoff time.
Hard to believe. Hard to believe. He is Justin Barney of Channel 4. Check out Channel 4's Friday Night Lights coverage beginning at 10:30. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. Hope you give us a listen on the radio for our Friday Night Lights radio coverage beginning in about 20 minutes or so when I head back to the radio station. We'll be here next Friday night. Friday Night Lights on 4+. Thank you to the great folks at Farah and Farah, and we will talk to you 1 week from tonight.
See why every day more people are choosing News4Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.